Thanks everyone for coming out to our Meet the Candidates event. Want to thank the American Fork Hospital for hosting us. Let's give them a round of applause. And also to Chick-fil-A for providing some cookies. Okay, so we're going to get started with, we'll have a prayer, and Lane Kiriyama, who is a member of the chamber, will offer that prayer. And then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Rob Shelton. So he'll just kind of stand up, start, and we'll all do the pledge. So is Lane, there he is.
Dearest Father in heaven, we're grateful this morning we could be gathered here. We're thankful for the men and women who are running for office and grateful for the sacrifices they're making. And we're so grateful for the political process here, for the freedoms we enjoy in this state, in this country. We pray that Thou bless us, we might have Thy Spirit, that we might have the spirit of civility and kindness, and bless us, we'll be able to understand the issues and to understand the needs and concerns of the people of American Fork. Please bless the candidates that they'll be able to express their ideals and values adequately to us. We pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
And if you'll all rise.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks everyone for doing that. So I have been the president of the Chamber of Commerce, the American Fork Chamber of Commerce, for about 7 months now. Before that, I actually have served on the board for, I think, 5 or 6 years, something like that. And so when we found out that there was going to be a primary needed for American Fork, we met as a board of directors and said, well, we should probably facilitate some sort of opportunity for the candidates, both mayoral and city council, to be able to meet the public. And so we had a meet and greet event a couple weeks ago at the Concert in the Park series over at Quail Cove Park. We're doing this debate now, and then we're doing a final meet and greet for the candidates again at the Concert in the Park on August 7th. And so you're welcome to come out to that concert and converse with the candidates there as well. So we'll just get right into it because we have 2 candidates here that have made it for our mayoral debate, and then I think we've got 6 of our candidates for city council that are here. And so we appreciate them coming out. John Dougal is going to be our moderator. He is the state auditor, a resident of Highland, and so we as a chamber wanted to get someone that we felt would be impartial but had a good reputation of being fair during a debate. And he just actually helped us out in the Pleasant Grove-Linden chamber debate, which was held at Pleasant Grove, and did a great job. So we're actually going to be recording this debate, and we'll put it up on social media. You'll be able to send that out to people that weren't able to make it so that they can hear what these candidates have to offer the community here. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to John, and he will let you know what the format of the debate will be, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. As a former representative of American Fork, about 2/3 of it, it's always a pleasure to be here, so thank you for the invitation. Prior to the event, we drew for seating and speaking order. The format will be, we will start off with 2 minutes each for opening comments. Carlton, you're first, and Bragg, you're second.
Great, I'll go ahead and stand up. My name is Carlton Bowen. I'm running for mayor of American Fork City. And I have a vision of an American Fork City free of debt and with a low tax environment where citizens and businesses can thrive and prosper. And that's basically why I'm running for mayor. 4 years ago, I've had the honor to serve as your city councilman, and 4 years ago when I was elected to that position, there was a bond issue. And when I found out that there was a bond issue, I was curious about how much debt American Fork City currently had. It was interesting that it didn't seem like that question had really been asked. I asserted from looking at the budgets that it was 56 million. That ended up to be accurate. And adding 20 million was a significant amount of debt to add. So I led out the fight against the additional bond debt. And thank you for 70% of voters for rejecting that bond. That was the right decision. I learned after I was elected to the city council that our debt service category was higher than it cost to run our entire police department for a year. So we were paying a lot in interest and principal to service our existing debt without adding an additional 20 million of debt. Since that time, we've been able to pay down our debt some, so we're headed in the right direction with that. And I think it's important that we continue in that right direction. There's lots of opportunities for cities to borrow, whether it's for parks or bridges or whatever next thing comes up. And we need people in the city government that are going to be committed to resisting that urge to borrow. We need to continue to pay down our debt. It's high. 48 million is a lot for a city of 30,000. So we need to keep going in the right direction on that. I also want to increase road funding without new fees, and I want to keep our secondary water as a flat rate. That's how it was sold to the voters, to the citizens of American Fork, and we need to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bowen. My name is Brad Frost, also a mayoral candidate, and I think that it's important that I tell you a little bit about myself. You learn about my personality and the traits that I might bring as your next mayor. So I have been on the council now for 5 years. I am married with 5 children, 2 grandchildren. I've been a lifelong resident of American Fork, and it's been a privilege to serve for the last 5 years. I think that I would classify myself as a very hard worker. It was instilled in me as a child, and I took kind of a different career path, that of being an entrepreneur, because I just felt like I was being chained by a clock, and I wanted to go out and test the free market, which I have. And so I started up 2 businesses at the same time. They kind of complemented each other. One is a landscaping business, which I currently still own and operate. The other one was a construction waste company, the dumpsters you see, because I knew I had to haul soil. And so I began to grow that waste business, and it became quite passionate to me. And I grew it because I outworked my competitors. I did that 1 can at a time, and what started out as 6 became 136, and then I was offered from my competitor to buy me out in 2006. And again, so I think that was just because I was getting up early, I worked hard, and I had that as a mindset. It's part of me. In this campaign process, I have kind of taken those same traits, and the fact that you might see a lot of signs. And so we started raising money. We brought a website to this so that the residents could see what we were about and they could refer to it. And every sign that you see will be attached. Either was voluntary or we came to their door personally, an American Fork resident, to tell a little bit ourselves. So I'm excited to continue to serve as your mayor. Thank you.
Just to clarify, to continue.
Carlton, your time.
He said continue to serve as mayor, but he's not currently serving as mayor.
Your time's up. You can address that in the question.
Okay.
Okay, as we go into the question period, we'll have a round robin. We'll alternate starting between the candidates. They have 1.5 minutes each for those. So, Josh, you ready for the 1.5 minutes? The other thing is, as the time elapses, if you'll join me in applause to politely tell them it's time to sit down and be quiet so the next candidate can speak. So, the first question will go to Brad, then Carlton. The question is, how do you want to, by the way, you can write questions and drop them over here if you're not hearing a question asked. I don't know what the questions are until moments before when I draw them, so I'm reading your questions as you write them. So hopefully your handwriting is good. How do you want to address pride in the administration, especially building codes, causing frustrations from the American Fork citizens? How do you want to address pride in the administration, such as building codes? Pride. causing frustration from the American Fork citizens?
I'll tell you, I think what we have done, and I think it'll be a continued mindset, is that we, over the past few years, we've cut our planning department, cut them in half as a cost-saving measure. And we chose to outsource plan reviews and things like that because with the ebbs and flows of the economy, we didn't want to be saddled with employees. And so that was kind of a mindset. But I think that pride, we talk about pride, those are corrective measures for a person or a personnel. And for me, I would say that if you feel like there's a pride issue, that would be something you could talk to me about. Because there is a certain amount of discretion that we give employees. We cannot just say you have to do it this way, this way, this way, and everything is by a book. So there's some discretionary. You know, if that discretionary decision-making process, if pride is entering into it, then as a mayor, I would want to know, and I would address it with them. And it would be something that we would evaluate twice a year on their evaluation, and we would work for improvement measures. But I think that we've come with good strides in our development processes. We've got good people there, and we will continue to monitor. We do not like the image that has been portrayed to American Fork, and so we've addressed that through personnel and streamlining processes.
Well, thank you. This is a great question. Before I answer it, let me just clarify. And I don't think this was intentional on Brad's part, but Mayor Hatfield is our current mayor. I think in a lot of ways he's done a great job, and he's been just an example of enduring with the cancer battle he's going through, and I wish him well with that. Regarding this inspection department question, it's actually a great question because we have had problems. We've had complaints. I've had complaints from several different builders, from different residents, about the delay in our inspections and in building inspections, basically, which is different than planning. I think our planning department actually does a great job. We have some really good talent there, and they do a good job with the planning commission and bringing stuff forward. But with our building inspections, there's unnecessary delays, and I think part of what we need to do, and part of what I would like to do as mayor, is improvement in our processes and defining processes. And I think that building inspection department could be helped by taking a look at their current processes and streamlining those processes, because I think there are people waiting longer than they need to, and I also know that there's been unnecessary inspections, things that were above and beyond the code. So clearly we need to enforce our existing building inspection code and have those inspections, but we don't need to go beyond that and add stuff that is just burdensome to residents trying to put up solar panels, for example. Thank you.
Okay, Carlton, this question will start with you. What are you doing to prevent puppy barn from spreading parvo disease?
Well, this is an interesting question, but I'm not aware of the issue. I am aware of parvo. My son is married to someone that actually raises puppies, and parvo is a dread to puppy breeders because it kills the little puppies when they get that parvo disease, and it's also really hard to get rid of. I've noticed at the puppy barn. By the way, can I just say the puppy barn's awesome? I mean, my grandkids go there, they love it. My kids go there sometimes. My kids are pretty grown up now, but I think it's a great asset to our community. I think it's a great idea. When I've gone in there, I've noticed that they have hand sanitizer. And of course, it's different puppy breeders that place their puppies. And so I imagine they take those risks and want to make sure the puppy barn is addressing those risks adequately. But I think that what Puppy Barn is doing with their hand sanitizer is a good start. If there's other things that need to be done, they're probably in the best position, and the people that place their puppies with them, to determine what those measures are and to implement them.
I really don't have anything to add to that because I was actually made aware of this last night on Facebook. Somebody instant messaged me, and I am guilty of one that takes my grandkids there and lets them get all cuddly with puppies. And we have a dog of our own, a small dog, and we are dog lovers. And so So in the sake of time and moving on to another question, what I would say as mayor is I would say let's address it through whatever enforcement measures need to happen. And I would dig into that. I don't, right off bat, I think, is this a law enforcement question? I don't know, but I'll ask the questions and we'll get to the root cause of the answer and why this business, if that is the case. I'm not one that will just make really quick, rash decisions. I will gain facts, I will understand an issue, and I'll do that very thoroughly before I make a decision. And that will be a common thread throughout whatever I have done. I think that's what I've done in the council. And so having kind of maybe a question that was not what I expected tonight, I would just follow a process that I've always followed, and that is just gain good information, work with people. There's going to be two sides to every story, but we can come together and we can solve the problem. Because to me, if it is parvo, which it sounds like it is, it's in nobody's interest, not even the business or the recipient, to have a sick dog, and we'll fix that.
Okay, Brad, we'll start with you. Are there specific programs or budget line items you'd like to cut or eliminate to pay for roads?
Specifically, I would say that to fund roads, what we have been trying to do is been the number one topic of our council retreats. Our goal has been to fund roads. We have allocated funds to roads. But let me tell you something about the city budget. The city budget is something that you have to take pruning shears to. If you try to take a chainsaw to a city budget, and it can do harm. You can rob quality of life issues. And so specifically, I would just say I would use methods that we have in the past and I've used in my own business. And that is we look internally at expenditures and we have made necessary cuts. In the sake of time, I would be happy to share more detail with you. We've cut personnel. We've outsourced everything that we can, again, to bring more money to our general fund. We this year went through to an entire new insurance carrier that will save the city about $150,000 in the end. We asked the city employees a few years back to put skin in the game in their health insurance. They paid 10% of the premium. That was money that comes back into it. So it's really just taking the pruning shears and then adding those additional savings into the road fund.
Well, I love talking about roads because we do need to fund our roads at a higher level. This has been a priority. This is when we talked about it being a topic of discussion at the strategic work sessions that we have annually. Absolutely. I've driven those discussions, and in a lot of cases we divide up into different groups on different topics, and most of the years I've been the one over that road topic, and we've put forth lots of good ideas. I don't think we need to make cuts. My contention all along has been that we just need to reprioritize. And every year for the last 3 years that I've been on the city council, we've taken in significantly more revenue than we expected to. And from day one, my contention was set a target, set a funding target that the city staff can work towards, that we can fund. I suggested $5 million. I think at least it needs to be $3 million. And some of the suggestions that I've made is take a percent of that surplus, of what we collected more in sales tax than what we had originally budgeted for. Take 50% of that and throw it at roads. Take a percent of the utility tax that we have on everyone's electric bill. Take some percent of that, even if it's 20%. Throw it towards roads. And then continue funding roads, but we don't need new fees. Some people are suggesting new fees. That would hit the church hard. It would hit businesses like Intermountain, which are nonprofits, hard. And we don't need that to fund our roads. We just need to reprioritize our current funding.
Okay, Carlton, we'll start with you. With the expected exponential growth in American Fork in the next few years, how are you going to be prepared to deal with the growth? What makes you the right man to lead our community through these changes?
Well, thank you for that. I'm pro-growth. And I think that's a positive thing. I think it's positive that our city's growing. A lot of that growth is to the south of the freeway. There is some in the northwest, there's a little bit more in the northeast, and I think it's great. We have great subdivisions going in. When people come into the city, they pay impact fees, which is supposed to help the cost of them, connecting up to our different systems, our water system, our sewer system. They're paying it. Since they're connecting to that system, they pay a fee to connect into that. One of the things we recently did that I voted against was we increased our impact fees from about $8,000 for an average residential house to $12,000. That's a huge increase. The Utah Valley Home Builders came and specifically talked against that in our public comment session, which I think is a little bit unusual. I don't remember hearing them when we increased our fees 2 years prior. Maybe they had, but I thought their comments were great. I thought it was unfortunate that we went ahead and raised the fees again. I think it's a huge increase in the wrong direction to go. And when I talk about directions, I mean, these are the things we need to be thinking about. Is our city going in a direction of less debt or more debt? Are we going in a direction of higher taxes or keeping our taxes low? Are we going in the direction of higher fees and significant fee increases? Or are we keeping our fees reasonable? These are important issues, and I will be working to help American Fork grow in a great way.
I think there's a good process of growth. We have an incredible planning commission. And so when you talk about one person and what they're going to do, I would say that I would expand that network out beyond one person, just the mayor. It's a network of staff. It's a network of planning commission. It's a network of the city council. It's in a cooperative measure, okay? And as far as impact fees, yes, we did an analysis. We started it in February. It was very thoroughly analyzed by a Zions Bank, which we hired as a consultant. And an impact fee is a way of buying into a city infrastructure. And those fees came out, and we felt like they were fair. And Utah Valley Builders Home Association that made comment, I just want to tell you they have backed my campaign. They have made a contribution to me, and they have subsequently said, we're backing you, Brad. And so they understand that with growth comes challenges. If you want to see maybe an example of that, when you go by Fresh Market, look at the size of pipe that's over in that road. It's a 36-inch pipe. It is through impact fees that pipe is being paid for and installed, because it is to promote the growth. And so impact fees are important, and as long as they're administered, and it was through a very transparent process. And so I would work with the team and stay on task.
Brad, we'll start with you. What has the current mayor done well, and where do you see the greatest need for improvement?
You know, I could spend an hour talking about our mayor. He's a friend of mine. I knew him prior to, but in a relationship of just a city council member to mayor, I don't think that we could have a better mayor for the day, because this mayor knows infrastructure. He knows roads, water, sewer. I actually tease him, and I think that his brain is made of an iPad, because he not only knows what's under the road, he knows when it reduces in size. And so I think Mayor Hatfield has been a great mayor for this day in infrastructure. And if I'm elected mayor, you will see a continuation of the investment into the infrastructure, roads, water, sewer. You get curveballs occasionally. Okay, that's why when I say you take a pruning rather than just a hacksaw or a chainsaw and just say random amounts of money, we got a little curveball thrown us. We have a bad water line that was purchased in 1970 along 600, and we're going to have to replace that. It's going to cost us millions. That was something we did not know. We have a deteriorating tank at the mouth of the canyon. The box started to collapse, so we had to divert $1.3 million to restore the top of that thing. And so pruning shears, but I just got to say this. I love and respect Mayor Hatfield.
Well, I also also think Mayor Hatfield's done a great job in a lot of ways. It's impressive the way, he's very efficient. And the mayor runs our meetings, our city council meetings. And I like the way that he invites the Boy Scouts up, to introduce themselves and get their names in the minutes. And he is good at infrastructure. He's a civil engineer by training. He's been in the military. He's been a city employee, so he does know the city very, very well. And I would agree that our city has been well served in a lot of ways. What would I do differently as mayor moving forward? I would resist any urges to add debt. I think that really hinders our city. If you look at the difference between 56 million that would have jumped to 76 million and where we're at now at 48 million that's a huge difference. But it was only 3.5 years ago. We need to continue on that course and resist that urge to add debt. I am for infrastructure. We have different enterprise funds, the water fund, the sewer fund, and there's irrigation funds. Anyway, there's different fees that we collect that have to be sent, the cemetery fund, they have to be spent on those things. I think we have adequate funds to continue to address our infrastructure needs. I'm committed to that also, but we need to increase our road funding.
Carlton, what principles and processes do you use to resolve conflict and differences of opinion? Give an example.
I appreciate that question. I think principles are really important. When I was elected 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, as we all did, we took an oath to uphold and support the Constitution. And that oath to support and uphold the Constitution is a very important oath. I'd taken it before when I joined the military, and as a young 18-year-old, and that gave me an opportunity to learn what does the Constitution really mean. Because when I took that oath, the person giving it to me asked. And I actually knew a little bit about the Constitution then. I know a lot more now. When we talk about how do we decide, how do we govern, we go to these types of issues. You have to go to the principles involved. You have to go to the foundational issues. On the Arts Council, people say, why are you opposed to some of the park tax funding? It's because of the principle involved. If you're taking money through the power to tax and then redistributing it to a non-governmental entity, that's socialism. Now, if you're buying a product or a service, that's okay, but you have to ask, is it the proper role of government? And so I think the first question you ask is principles. What is the principle governing this? Is it property rights? Is it, individual agency and freedom? Is this something the government should be involved in? If it is, which there are, of course, things that the government should be involved in, then what should that role be? And I think you have to listen. The way you resolve conflict is to listen, you make a decision, and everyone moves forward.
I would say that a really good guiding principle that I have used and I have found very effective is that alienating yourself does no good. And you can fall on a principle, yes you can. But being collaborative with council members, citizens and staff gets you a long ways. And so part of my personality trait is that I am very collaborative. And you get people and you listen to them and you try to understand all the facts and then you make a decision. But if you're going to isolate yourself and then call out your fellow council members for not standing by the Constitution, has been stated by Councilman Bowen in meetings, because we funded through a federal program some aging water structure through a CDBG grant through Mountain Associated Government. He isolated himself and called us on the carpet that we had just violated our oath of office. And so if I would have thought that, I would have probably taken somebody aside privately, talked to them about it, and not caused alienation. That's what we see in Washington. And let me tell you something, American Fork is not Washington. We do not need to bring it here and think that we have to act like them and draw divisions and lines. We're in it together and we can act responsibly. But I am a person that brings people together.
Okay, Brad. What are your biggest accomplishments as a city council member?
I'm gonna try to be real humble here. I mean, the thing I don't like about a campaign is sometimes you do have to talk about yourself a little bit. But I'm gonna talk about some things that I've done, but I hope that in my comments you'll know that there's a lot of we in it. When I say we, it's fellow council members, Councilman Bowen, Councilman Sheldon, the others. But I'm pretty proud that I stood up for American Fork Canyon. It took a considerable amount of my time, and it was completely to represent the city. I was getting called, I was getting asked, and I took a step out on a ledge that I didn't know where it was going to take me, and it engulfed me. But through that process, we have been able to bring a two-year monitoring program to the water if they're going to develop up there, because it's in the heart of our watershed. And Councilman Shelton was right with me. And let me tell you something, Councilman Bowen was not there. We passed a resolution that was just there to protect American Fork Canyon. It had nothing to do with roadways or restrictions or nothing. He voted against it and then turned on us against that. And so I'm pretty proud of American Fork Canyon, and right now we have a seat at the table of no matter what happens there. The other one that I would say is the American Fork Cemetery and the expansion and the garden associated with that. Spent a lot of time trying to make that beautiful and respected.
Well, I'll address a couple of the issues that have come up. It is important to stick by principles, and when people are violating core principles, it is important to point that out. Now, I threw the question out on the CDBG issue. Cite in the Constitution where this is authorized, because local infrastructure is not a federal role. That is not why we organized the federal government. It was for defense, it was for dealing with other nations. It wasn't to fund our local water lines, which, by the way, we have money to do and should do on our own. So it is important to make those distinctions. You know, this is political, whether you're in a local thing or a federal thing. I think we can do it with respect towards one another, and I have always been respectful towards my fellow council members. They might not always agree with me, and that's up to them whether they agree or disagree. But I have been respectful in pointing out those differences, and I think it's important to note those differences. You know, when we had this bond issue, it was very divisive. So before I came in on day one, there was that divisiveness. Should I have not lobbied against the bond because the other four had been for it? Absolutely not. So when you talk about my greatest accomplishment, the city being less in debt to the tune of $28 million, somewhere at least 20 million, right? If you don't count the debt we've paid off, I think was a huge accomplishment.
And this is our final question. Carlton, what is your plan for handling increased traffic flow?
Well, thank you for that. Roads, right? We need to adequately maintain our roads, but we have traffic studies, we have engineering plans. I was actually for widening 100 East, by the way, which didn't get widened. When you talk about American Fork Canyon, I think Utah County should do some things there as far as widening that road. There's a lot of growth up there. We need to maintain our access to it. I think we all love American Fork Canyon. By the way, that resolution, yes, I was against it. I viewed it as pro-EPA. I viewed it as pro some UN stuff that is seeking to use local governments to restrict our freedom. I think it's important to be aware of those things and to be against them. We have the institutions in place in our city. We have a great city. We have great people working for our city. We have departments, we have processes. Some of them can be improved in the processes. But we can use our existing institutions, our existing staff to handle this growth. We have projections, we have funding. You know, a lot of people don't realize that our funding sources are self-adjusting. As more people move into the city, we collect property tax we weren't collecting before. As we do more business, we collect sales tax that we weren't collecting before. We're collecting utility fees to pay for the utilities that we weren't collecting before. So this notion that you always have to be increasing the tax burden to adequately take care of government is false. I will work on principles.
Well, to my knowledge, over the last 4 years, as we've served together, we have not increased the tax burden. Not myself, not Councilman Bowen, not the other council members.
Except for the park tax.
Okay, and so, yes, the park tax was something that, as he interjected there, yes, it did. And, you know, as he respected the vote of the road bond not passing and taking great accomplishment in that, and I gotta tell you, I followed the voters. I did exactly what they asked me to do after that vote was taken, and I did the same with the park tax. So I'm not selectively choosing the will of the people when they vote on something, as Carlton Bowen has. He will not fund certain things, and that was clearly stated in a vote by the people. And so, as a mayor, you take on a little different role than you do as a city council member. You become a part of what they call Mountain Land Association of Governments, where all the mayors meet together. And MAG is the collector of all state, federal, local funds to fund highway road projects. And so, if I am elected, I will sit on that board and I will advocate for and in behalf of American Fork. When I put a hat on, if I could just use an analogy as a mayor, I will look at 10 square miles. And Washington is not in those 10 square miles. And so as federal funds come through, we built federal funds by Costco. As mayor, I will lobby in behalf of our residents for those portions of MAG funding so we can have good transportation.
Okay, we're going to go to closing comments. I'm going to change the rules slightly. I'm going to give you each 2 minutes. Yeah, 1 minute to 2 minutes. We're going to give you 2 minutes each for any closing comments you'd like to make. Brad, we're going to start with you.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm sorry there's no pancakes. Last year we had a little debacle and the syrup dropped right over here. But it's good to see you here. And I just want to tell you something, and I hope that you can feel it, that I have a great love for this city. I have served in many capacities outside of local government, but as neighbor, and so my heart is fully vested in American Fork City. I raised my family here, my grandchildren. We've been real blessed to have all our kids want to stay here. If one tried to leave, I might get a little upset, at least one of the grandkids. I don't know about the kids. But I think the distinction that I'm making, that I would make with you between two candidates here is one, that I am a collaborator, that I bring people to the table. My temperament is that of just to be a good listener. And I refuse to let Washington dictate American Fork City. And we even talked about this as a campaign team as we was going in. And when we campaigned and we went around and we were talking with people, we thought, should we carry somebody along with us that's in this congressional race? And we thought, no, that just takes away time of talking about American Fork. And so I chose to say, focused on American Fork. The 3rd Congressional District can take care of itself. They're grown-up men with good teams. And so I love this city. I will give everything that I have, everything that I am, everything that I know, and I will use the people around me for the greater good to make sure this city prospers. And that includes the residents, the committees. But let me tell you, having sit on the council is so important, and I'll be very inclusive because I'd rather, if we're going to make a mistake somewhere along the line, let's make it together.
We have a great city. This is a wonderful place to live. It truly is. I think you all know that. And lots of other people know it too. That's why they're coming here. Why is it great? Part of it is because of our shared values. We gain from learning from others, certainly, and I'm interested in that. But a lot of what makes it great to live here is our shared values. And we need to be concerned about the direction that our city's going. In 2013, December, right around Christmas time, when no one was paying attention, a federal judge from Connecticut who'd been in Utah less than 6 months overturned our state constitution. He doesn't have the judicial authority to do that. Remember, we the people are the ultimate source of governmental authority, I proposed an amendment, a resolution rather, that would affirm the Utah State Constitution's definition of marriage as between a man and a woman in response to that ruling by that judge. Because before I was even in office, about 10 days before, none of the fellow councilmen would support me in that. Where was the leadership? Governor Herbert had to be brought to the legal fight, kicking and screaming practically. I ran for county commissioner to raise this issue when the council wouldn't take it up, and ran an issues campaign and got this before the Republican convention, and finally Herbert would jump in. Finally Reyes litigated this. We need to be concerned about the direction our city's going. Is it over regulation? Is it over taxation? Is it adding to our debt burden? Is it increasing our fees in subtle ways? You know, these studies, that's cover. Anytime the city wants to raise a fee, they're going to do a study. You need to be aware of these things, and you need to vote to go in the right direction.
I know it's a difficult thing to stand before folks and campaign. I've done it a few times myself. And so if we can give a round of applause for the candidates for doing that. We're going to take a couple minutes. We're going to excuse the mayoral candidates. We're going to bring the city council candidates up, and then we'll start the next round of debates. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Okay, welcome to round two. Just as an announcement, my understanding is Aaron is unable to be here. He's on trek, which many of you guys know what that is. So he's out helping with that for the next 3 days. We have the other 6 candidates here, and we drew, as with the other one, in terms of seating and speaking order. Each candidate has 2 minutes for opening remarks. We're going to start with you, Barbara, and we're going to just work our way down the table.
My name is Barbara Christiansen. I'm running for City Council. I have been a professional communicator for 29 years. I've covered American Fork City for the American Fork Citizen and the Daily Herald. Couldn't think of the name of the paper, that's gone. Anyway, sorry. I've done that. I've gone through the issues. I haven't just heard about them or read about them, but I have lived and breathed them. There have been times when the city council members and the mayoral people have asked me some background questions, and this is where I feel my strong point is that I can bring that knowledge that I've gained over 29 years to help my community. Now, I've retired. I'm not a newspaper reporter anymore, so I can be fair and not be pushing for one thing or another, which I didn't do before, but anyway, you have to be careful. I firmly believe that we should not take on additional debt that's not necessary or logical. I don't think we should. I firmly believe we should try and get out of debt as much as possible. Sometimes there's a reason to do that, so I don't think we should ever set parameters where we say absolutely nothing here or absolutely everything here. We have to be reasonable, we have to have common sense. As a communicator, I want to help other people communicate, and it goes both directions. I would like to start something to say communication with the residents so they can understand what the issues are and we can get their feelings. I want to do that on the city website, on Facebook, anything that we can do. Appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara, I forgot my own mom's name once, so don't feel bad. Okay, I'm Stacy Carroll, and I'm running for City Council. And I thought I would tell you I grew up in Utah County. I've lived in American Fork for 7.5 years now, and I truly love American Fork. I thought I should tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a family where public service was very important. My dad was the state legislator, the senator for this area for 26 years. And we, and I continue to be in the past and in the future, to talk to him and about different topics and being informed and things. I spent a lot of time sitting on the floor of the legislature and committee meetings and things like that. This directly informs my approach to government. I truly believe that the best approach is to be a collaborative problem solver. I have watched many people work and how they work, and the best people are the ones who are able to listen to others, take the ideas from others, and to work well with other people. For the 2.5 years ago, the mayor appointed me to the Park Tax Advisory Board. This is a board that works to provide, that takes the park tax money and provides it for the parks, arts, recreation, and culture. I was entrusted with almost $1 million just this year, almost $1 million to allocate towards parks, arts, recreation, and culture. And I'm really proud of the fact that this group of people, who is a diverse group who has differing ideas, and frankly, we disagree many times, they are all supporting me on my bid for city council. That they are all throwing their weight behind me, and I view that as an endorsement of my work ethic as well as my collaboration.
Real quick, I'm just going to remind everybody, please turn off your phones.
Thanks, Barbara and Stacy. I can't forget my mother's name. She's sitting in the audience. Didn't go very well. My name is Kyle Barrett, as you are aware of. I'm running for city council. A little bit about me. I was born, raised, and educated in American Fork. I'm a 6th generation American Forker. I'm all about American Fork. If I was elected, I would be actually the 4th generation public servant in my family. My father was the mayor on the city council. My great-grandfather was the city recorder and city councilman. And my great-great-grandfather was one of the first mayors in the early 1900s. A little bit about my educational. I've actually obtained a bachelor's and a master's degree. My master's degree is in public, state and local government with an emphasis in so it's in public administration with emphasis in state and local policy. During that time, I was able to become very well informed about some of the issues facing American Fork, whether it be outsourcing, the proper role of government, debt, whether it be bonds. I also was able to analyze utility rates across the state of Utah. I was privileged to be able to analyze 6 different cities to see where our utility rates are. But probably the biggest thing that I find pride in American Fork, or I pride myself in, I guess you could say, is being informed. I've attended or watched 75% of the city council meetings over the last 4 years. I'm up to date on what's going on. I know what's taking place. I'm a listener. I want to find out what the answers are to the problems in American Fork. I love American Fork, and that's really the biggest reason I'm running, is because of my love of city and the way I was raised. And just taught to love American Fork. So.
Good morning. My name is Doug Richards. Kind of go through some lines here. My motivation for running for council began with my father, Dr. Guy S. Richards. He single-handedly convinced the Utah State government to build the Utah State Training School, or the Development Center, in American Fork. Brigham City had already been selected, and he convinced them to change their mind and locate it here, combine it with the dairy farm and other skills training, which led to the development of the amphitheater. My father, Dr. Guy A. Richards, as a young doctor, he conducted the first mass polio vaccination in Utah and one of the first in the United States here in American Fork. The line to get the polio vaccination on a sugar cube was blocks long. He also converted our family station wagon into the first ambulance in American Fork. Before then, the hearse from Anderson Mortuary served as the hearse and as the ambulance. He personally bought and paid for the radios, for the first radios, and volunteered to be the ER doctor. One doctor, emergency room, and his car was car number 1. He was a superintendent of the U.S. Utah State Training School. The emergency wing in the other part of the hospital was named and dedicated after him. He's on the Hall of Fame for both American Fork High School and the American Fork Hospital for his accomplishments and contributions. Also, the example set by my teachers. I was born and raised here, went to Forbes, American Fork Junior High, and American Fork High School. I must also mention my other uncle, our uncle, Dr. Larson from Lehigh. He was on the Alpine School Board, and he supported Lehigh like my parents supported American Fork.
I thought he was going to cheat me out of 3 seconds, but put it back on. I'm Jeff Schroeder. I'm currently at the City Council. About 4.5 years ago, I thought, if I don't run, who's going to run? And if not now, when? So I went ahead and ran for City Council. I enjoyed running for City Council. I'm coming off my 40th anniversary for our wedding in November. Been married for 40 years. Have 4 children and 10 grandchildren, and they are a blast. They copy me and they do what I do, so I got to be really careful what I do. But I enjoy that. I enjoy working with the City Council, and I love our mayor. Mayor Hatfield's great. I've lost my dad, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law the last 3 years, and Mayor Hatfield, without exception, took the time to make sure that he knew that I knew that he cared about me and that I lost my parents, and I really appreciate that. I love the mayor. I ran because I did not want a bond. We always say, oh, it's not a tax. Well, eventually it's a tax because somebody's got to pay for it. And I ran on that and wanted to be there, and I still want American Fork to be debt-free. I'd rather use our money that's paying for the debt services to pay for services. And so I want to do that too, but I want to do it in a way that's logical and methodic and over time, not all at once where we have to really cause harm. So I would love to be the City Council for the next 4 years. There are good candidates up here. I've met every one of them, and they're good people. We don't have any bad people running, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Ernie John. I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate you taking your time this Saturday morning to sit in a boring political debate here. We will try and keep it less boring, but I grew up in southern Utah. I grew up on a farm, and I learned the value of hard work. And as part of that, when we moved to American Fork 15 years ago, one of the things we were looking for was how do we teach our kids hard work, and what we came up with was the American Fork Marching Band. So I've had a long history. Thank you. We've had a long history of public service, and I've been a band dad for 10 years here in American Fork, helping all my kids. And my kids aren't there anymore, but I continue because it's such a great group. I served 6 years on the community council for the junior high. I am current president of American Fork Metropolitan Water District, similar to Stacy, that we were appointed by the mayor and ratified by the city council to serve on that board. I'm current president and water master for American Fork Irrigation. I assisted Brad Frost in his fight for American Fork Canyon. I felt that was really important. I attended all those Board of Adjustment meetings and county commission meetings. And that's kind of what led me to run here is we've got a great group of candidates. And I didn't know who we were going to have for candidates. So I threw my hat in the ring and felt I had something to add to American Fork. And what I have to add is my knowledge of having lived in 11 states with my wife in 33 years of marriage and moving around and seeing a lot of different levels of service and a lot of different levels of taxation, and some of them were erroneous. They were horrible. And fortunately here in American Fork, we don't have that. I'd like to continue this community to be the way it is. It's a wonderful place to live. I love it. And our sense of community is so important to me. And our growth that we're going to face in the next 4 to 6 years is going to be a big part of keeping that community, and I hope I can help do that. Thank you.
As with the last debate, we'll have 1.5 minutes for each question. We're going to start with Stacy on this. We're going to do a round robin format. Not every question will be asked of every candidate. So this first question will go to Stacy, then Kyle, then Doug, then Jeff. So 4 of you will answer this question. Do you have a plan to address increasing panhandling and the safety concerns related to panhandling?
Okay, so here's a couple of thoughts that I have about panhandling. Number one, I do think that you can control a lot of things just by structural changes. For example, down in the meadows, they put a barrier down in the road, and that decreased the panhandling without having to have more police enforcement. And I think that is a good tactic to use because you don't want to have to be going in there constantly and taking care of people. Number two thought that I have is that always remember that this is a humanitarian issue. These are people. These are things, you can't just always look at it as a problem that needs to be solved that is just like a esoteric problem. These are actual people and their lives. So they need to be taken care of in the best way possible. And then I had a third thought. What was it? I don't remember. But I do think that panhandling, a lot of times they get sent all the way up, they get sent to Salt Lake City because they have more resources. I think that they have the resources to take care of them, and we need to keep making sure that they get the resources they need. It shouldn't be only just, oh, I remember what the other thought was. Sorry, really quick, we need to keep doing outreach to make sure people aren't giving them money because that is not giving them the resources they need. And I finished with 5 seconds left.
I second Stacy on that. It's really a humanitarian issue. First of all, yeah, you can't police your way out of every single problem that faces American Fork City. You can't just send the police out over every single issue. I do support the issue that American Fork City had in putting up those barriers down there in the meadows and across the street over by Del Taco and Les Schwab. I think that was a great idea. It basically makes it so people can't panhandle there, can't stand in the middle of the road. It's also a public safety issue when they're standing in that area there. But like I said, it's really a humanitarian issue. I like the idea of outreaching to these people to find out what's going on. There's no doubt that the amount of, as high as housing costs increase, the amount of people that are unable to afford affordable housing is increasing. And so obviously the state is growing. The homeless problem is growing. The panhandling problem is growing. And certainly my approach to it is to come up with policy that maybe deters them from doing that. And also outreaching to those people, determining what the real issue is, what the problem is. Are these people that are taking the train down from Salt Lake because they feel like that, that AF City has a loophole and we're welcoming that? Or what is the real issue here? Are these people local residents of American Fork who, used to have a home and have lost it through economic downturn or job loss? So I definitely think the solution is to reach out to those people, but also at the same time, you can't, police your way out of every problem.
I had the time of my life when I lived in Las Vegas, and I would fly home to American Fork every weekend for 22 years. I spent every weekend here, every vacation, every holiday. But in Las Vegas, the panhandling is out of control. If you look on the news, there's thousands of people that live in the underground. And the way they've approached it there is to educate the people that don't give to them, give to other sources that provides to them and helps them. If the panhandlers are successful, it gets out of control. There they will follow you into a restaurant. They will chase you down in a parking lot. So the approach I would say is educate the people of American Fork. Who are these people? What are they doing here? Because in Vegas, they found where many of them were very wealthy and just doing it as a hobby. Some were retired, they had plenty of money. I remember once they tracked one guy back, he got in a Cadillac, he drove home to a mansion. They asked him why he did it. He said, got to do something during the day, might as well do this. And I think a lot of the people are that way. Now, I lived at the training school for a period of time, and I do see some of the people who have problems much greater than just what handing money to them is going to accomplish. And those people do need help. There's a problem with the lack of care of the mentally disabled and people who honestly need help.
Thank you. I'm concerned, I like the structural changes because I want it to be safe, that we're really in trouble as a community when we pass by people and we notice them not. And again, sometimes we get to that point where we start gating our communities and we start locking people out, and I'm really concerned about that because we're all brothers and sisters. I did Ancestry.com looked at that and found out how many people I'm related to. And some people I'm not really politically kosher with, but we're still related. So I'd like the structural changes to make it safe, but I do not want to interfere with people if they want to panhandle. The only thing I do want to stop those, I don't want them to be aggressive. If they're attacking people or hitting their cars or doing that kind of things, then they should be arrested for that. But if they're peacefully collecting money and not causing a problem, then I'm okay with them doing that.
Okay, Ernie, we're going to start with you on question number 2. And we're going to go to Ernie, then Barbara, then Stacy, then Kyle. The question is, with the expected growth in American Fork in the next few years, how are you going to prepare yourself and the city to deal with that growth? We're not the first city to quickly double in size.
This is really the main reason that I decided to run was growth that's coming up. I think I'm well placed. Like I said, I've lived in 11 states with my wife around the country, and we've lived in areas that were static, and we had great housing prices, and we lived in places where we couldn't afford to do anything other than rent a small apartment. So I'm well versed in how growth can affect the community. And I think I'm also well placed to help American Fork grow. One of the things that I've been doing is I'm president of American Fork Metropolitan Water Board, and so we have been working on making sure American Fork has enough water. And that's drinking water underground and also our irrigation water. So I've been doing that, and in that I've found that it's much greater than water. You've got to roll everything into it. And one of the biggest things that we've got to do is we've got to maintain our quality of life while we grow. And I think that's one of the jobs of the city council, is to listen to its citizens and say, what services do you want? How much do you want to pay for them? And then work with them to come up with what we need to do. I think a great example was the impact fees. I hate to see the impact fees increase, but as this city grows, we needed them. If we didn't get them ahead of the curve and tried to catch up behind the curve, it costs us a lot more money. A great example is our pressurized irrigation system. If we would have put it in 12 years before, it would have been $15 million. Instead, we spent $47 million. So I think that that's one of the examples we needed to get ahead of the curve of growth.
Three, two, one, go. Okay. Our city planning commission works tirelessly as all volunteers, and they do a great job to get things prepared for roads. They study arterial roads, conductor roads, the different types of roads. They place them so that they're spread out so that people can get where they want to. That's an example of just what we do. We need to be prepared ahead of time before the growth comes in. Of course, it's always coming, but you need to prepare ahead so that you're not caught behind something and then you're making strides trying to catch up. There are many things that are needed, things like a new fire station, so that we can better serve the people who are here. The impact fees are nothing more than paying for the impact that they have on the current residents, or, so the current residents aren't paying for new people who come. They're paying their share and not expecting other people to pay their share. It's fair to everybody. The studies are good. We just need to be prepared and listen to everybody around. Thank you.
Okay, I think the question is assuming that we haven't already prepared for growth, because I think the city has done a lot of things to prepare for growth. We have, we know about the statistics. We have planned for a new fire station and a police station annexed to the fire station. We're planning for more water lines. We're doing continual adjustments to our impact fees. And it's something that we are continuing to do. And I think that I would like to continue in that same vein. But one thing I would like to point out is that part of this, and Barbara alluded to this, part of this is going out and talking to citizens, going out and talking to city staff and seeing where the problems are. And I would say that takes a lot of work. And that is something that really needs to be taken into account, is that you need somebody who is willing to put forth a lot of work. Having a lot of growth is a good problem to have in most cases. It means that your city is doing a good job. The people want to live there. But you have to be able to work hard and catch up with the growth that is happening. One thing that I'm really interested in is the transit-oriented development that has been happening and that will be happening down by the Front Runner Station. Having a knowledge of what makes a good transit-oriented development is something that is really important in order to make that area the jewel that it can be. And that's something that I have tried to educate myself on.
When it comes to growth, obviously, there are several key things here. Obviously, staying ahead of the game, as the other three candidates have mentioned here, is the most important thing, staying ahead of it and realizing what's coming into the city. I think it's also important, obviously, the growth is going to happen south of the freeway. And one of the most probably critical things is speaking with those people who own land down there to determine what their plan of attack is. Certainly, if you own land around the Front Runner Station, having a high-density area housing makes sense. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had people that showed up to city council meeting that were upset that the city was going to approve a high-density housing around the Front Runner Station. It's important that we speak with the landowners down there to determine what their plan of attack is, to make sure that high density is going in where high density makes sense, and low density housing is being placed where low density housing is acceptable, or it makes common sense. We all know that Front Runner is used and is getting bigger and bigger. We can definitely look to, I would say, the Farmington Station as a way. Look at other cities, look at the way they've done things, learn from them. I think that Farmington Station is a great example of a well-planned TOD, a transit-oriented district, where there's both citizens that can live there, people can work there. And so I'd say the most important thing is staying ahead of the game and being well-informed and learning from others' mistakes and the good that they've done. So.
All right, Doug, here's the question that's going to start with you, and we're going to have Doug, Jeff, Ernie, and Barbara answer this question. The City Council is a diverse group. What strategies and/or experience do you have in gaining consensus, or at least getting a working plan going?
Thank you. First of all, by my education and career, I'm an engineer with postgraduate in production management and business management. So I come from a different sector than the other councilmen, and I think I complement what they have. I'm not necessarily entrenched in the way the city has been run or the city affairs. I have been plant manager of a highly hazardous chemical operation, and that's my background, highly hazardous chemicals, and a corporate executive of a company out of Las Vegas. That's why I was down there so much. As the manager and as a corporate executive, you have to get along with people. You have to get a consensus. You have to be a team member and a team builder. And I think that is part of what I bring to this. I think that's my nature.
Thank you. I've worked with the city council. I think we need a little sense of humor once in a while. I don't mind putting that in once in a while because sometimes it gets a little stuffy at the meetings. But I think we just have to work and listen to each other. It's okay to have disagreements, but not be disagreeable. And sometimes we get disagreeable, and there's no reason for that. I'm an attorney by trade. I started out as a bricklayer, but in Utah, the feast and famine of being a bricklayer, I thought, I've got to go to school. I've got to have a job that I can do every day, even if it's snowing outside. So I've been practicing law in California and licensed in California, Wyoming, and Utah. I work with people every day. I talk to them about their legal issues. I listen carefully. I solve problems, and I think I can do that with the city council. I think I've worked well with our city council and our mayor. I've still had my opinions, but I'm happy to work with them and listen to them when they need listening. So I enjoy working with people. I love people. People are good, and it's good to work with them.
Like Doug, I'm an engineer, educated at BYU. And as I said before, we chased a career around the country. If you work for a Fortune 100 company, the way to move up is to move. And so working for 2 Fortune 100 companies for my career, one of them was Nucor Steel, and we had a saying that was hard to hurt and quick to heal. And I think that goes a long way in getting along with people, that you don't take offense and you get over it and move on. But probably the biggest one I have, I volunteered for Boy Scouts of America for 30 years. And we have, I'm going to get emotional, I'm sorry. We have a program called Timberline. And Timberline, we teach to young men and young women in our community. And National Parks Council leads the nation in Timberline. We do 40 courses a year. I am course director this year and next year. And what we teach these kids is exactly that. We teach them communicating well, problem solving, ethical decision making. And I've been doing that for 7 years, and I am proud to be associated with that group. And it's a lot of fun teaching it, but it's more fun to live it. And I think that would be what I would bring to our city council, is I've taught it, and I hope that I'm living it well, and it works on how to get along with people. Thank you.
In my experience, I have attended lots of city council meetings for 29 years, but I have seen many, many people express different opinions. That's good. If we all had the same opinion, we don't all have to be there. We don't all have to participate. Our point is to listen to others. And during my experience, I have spent a lot of time going into people's homes, interviewing them on their particular interests, if they crochet snowflakes, or they have train sets, or whatever. I talk to them about what is important to them. But mostly I spend my time listening. In fact, sometimes I won't recognize people because I spend a lot of time writing down what they're saying, because I listen, I don't look at their faces. Anyway, so I forget names and faces too. So anyway, I believe that what I would like to do would be to use those skills that I have gained, would be to work with the people to express, to teach, to let the public understand what the issues are, and then have a good way for them to express to us their feelings. Then we can make informed decisions.
This next question is going to start with Kyle. We're going to go Kyle, Doug, Jeff, then Ernie. In the spirit of cooperation and collaboration, who are you supporting for mayor and why?
Well, it's funny we have this, that question was asked because I was talking with Carlton prior to this little meeting, and I noticed that he is not supporting me. He is supporting Aaron Clegg. So I thought, well, Carlton, you're supporting Aaron Clegg. You're not supporting me. He says, well, So, Carlton, I will be supporting Brad Frost. I've spoken with Carlton a number of times. I want to make it very clear that me and Carlton have a good working relationship. We disagree a lot. We agree occasionally. But I like Carlton. I admire him sticking to his principles. Even though we disagree on those principles sometimes, I admire him for doing that. I'll be supporting for Brad, not because of the opposite. I'm supporting Brad because I believe that Brad is the best man for the job. Brad is unbelievably well informed about the issues facing American Fork. He loves American Fork. He's born and raised here. Him and Mr. Shelton have been around a while. And I've always admired their efforts, their energy, their passion for American Fork City public service. And for that reason, I'll be supporting Brad Frost, among other reasons. But yeah, Brad, you have my vote. Carlton, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's a good question. I've attended some staff meetings, or council meetings, excuse me, and the one thing that I'm impressed with, the council members who will make a decision and stand by it. And instead of abstaining, they should say yes or no, and I knows Carlton abstaining from voting from time to time, whereas the others have made a decision and voted. So I have to support Councilman Frost as far as being mayoral candidate. What little I know of him, I'm impressed. He seems to be a person who does want to work with people, as does Kevin. I've met with Kevin. I'm impressed with him. I've been to his home now in another meeting. He's gone out above and beyond the call of duty, I believe, to at least help me present myself as councilman. Councilman Shelton, I knew his family, I knew his grandfather, and I've got a little bit of history with him. His grandparents were good friends with my parents. And I've got a relationship with Jeff. Jeff's been quite supportive of my brother and his family and his son. So I've kind of got a connection with all of these folks, and I look forward to working with them.
I'm going to be supporting Brad. Carlton and I came in on the same ticket. We were opposed to the bond. We were tired of more and more taxes. Again, calling it a bond does not change the fact that somehow somebody's going to pay taxes to pay it. So we came in on that. I've watched both of them work in city council for the past 4 years. We've worked together. I've seen Brad go above and beyond, not just be a city councilman, but I've seen him go out and meet with people, 2 or 3 hours with groups of people. I've watched him. I watched him perform. I've watched his calm stature. I mean, he's not excitable. He just makes decisions and he listens to people. And I've seen him work with all kinds of people in extraordinary ways, not just a normal city councilman, but actually go a little bit beyond. I haven't seen a lot with Carlton with that. Again, I like Carlton. We get along just great. But I think I'll be voting for Brad because of the way he works with citizens. And I know he'll do just like Mayor Hatfield. And surprisingly, Mayor Hatfield was way more patient with people than I thought he should be. A couple times I wanted to shut people down, and Mayor Hatfield would be patient. I think Brad would be the same way. He'd let people speak and have their opinions heard. Whether he agreed with them or not, he would not shut them down. So I'll be voting for Brad.
I had the opportunity, my wife and I, to be on Mayor Hatfield's election committee for both of his campaigns. And that said, I will be supporting Brad Frost. I got an opportunity to work with Brad on the American Fork Canyon issue. I knew him before that, but I didn't know his work ethic. I didn't know how much he cared about the people, and that's why he cares about American Fork Canyon, because he cares about the people. Not just the canyon itself, but how it affects our community. And I've had the opportunity to work with him on several water issues. And he's knowledgeable, he's well-spoken, and he loves this community, and he will listen. And I agree, I've seen Mayor Hatfield do the same thing when he would be very patient, but I've also seen Councilman Frost do the same thing when he was talking to people when I think I would have walked away, but he didn't do that, and he set a great example for me. So Brad, I will be voting for you. Thank you.
We'll pass the mic down here. We're going to start this question with Barbara.
I agree.
Oh, no. Not that question. Here we go. Question number 5. By the way, my name is John. Speak to us on quality of life issues. What are your feelings and beliefs? And this question will go to Barbara, Stacy, Kyle, and Doug.
I love quality of life. I think it's what sets a good community into a great community. And we have a great community. We have such a quality of life. We have sports and recreation programs for children and adults. We have arts that's just unsurpassed in the area anyway. Maybe we're not quite like Metropolitan Opera or whatever, but we do very well. But the library, it's one of my favorite passions. It's a place where people can come, learn, exchange ideas, and grow. And that's what it's all about. We have so many resources that are there. Sometimes we can say that some of these things are not productive, as far as the fact that you don't get money back, 15 cents if you return a book back late. The library only gets 15 cents from you. That doesn't go very far to pay what it costs. But what it gives to the community, what all these other things give to the community, help us grow together as a community and make us the community great and the people great. And it helps us network and work together, and that's what it's about. We love it.
Well, I'm excited that I get to talk about quality of life issues. It's kind of a fun one. I too believe that it's a worthwhile cause to invest in quality of life things. And by quality of life, I mean anywhere from parks, I mean the library, I mean some recreation programs, I mean the Timpanogos Arts Foundation. Sorry, this is too close. But there's many things that make it a great place to live. I've been going around occasionally knocking on people's doors and asking them, what's important to you? What's important to you in the city? And you'd be surprised at how many people, their number one thing is a quality of life issue. They want to know how I feel about arts. They want to know how I feel about parks. Fortunately for me, I have been on the Park Tax Advisory Board, so I can answer those questions, and they are important things to me. In my last few seconds, I want to give you some of the things that the Park Tax has been able to accomplish just in 2 years of funding, 2 years. We were able to pave the fitness center, put up park benches, put almost $500,000 towards Art Dyke Park, put a new roof on the DUP museum, give some money for the Friends of the American Fork Library, including some money for the book ferry, give money for the Timpanogos Arts Foundation for their programming, reinstate the American Fork History Pageant, and this year our request includes things, oh shoot, ask me later.
When it comes to quality of life, obviously, that's what really makes a city a community, is when you have good quality of life. There are cities around here that do not have the amenities or things that I would call the quality of life, such as a rec center, such as a library, such as a golf course. Those are some of the things that make quality of life an important thing. I think it's, when it comes to the quality of life, I think it's not necessarily always about meeting the majority of what people want. I ran to a gentleman the other day who told me, you know, why are we spending $25,000 on a play? Why are we giving money for a sculpture? Why are we spending money on, you know, Art Dyke Park? We should put that money elsewhere. And obviously state regulation requires us not to be able to do that with that park tax. But, you know, those things, he said, well, we don't need those. We ought to put those somewhere else. I don't want that going on. Well, you know what? Those are the things that make quality of life an important thing. The ability to go to a city library and have our own library and our own rec center. You know, the purpose of government is not to run like a business. Everything doesn't have to make money. It's about quality of life. Quality of life versus making money. You have to look at those sometimes. When it comes to government, quality of life needs to override revenue in a lot of ways. Not always, but in a lot of ways. So that's how I stand on quality of life.
I think I was next on that one. For me, the quality of life, I go back to where I've lived in 5 cities and 3 states, but I've elected to come back to American Fork every weekend, like I mentioned. And the draw for me is a combination of the natural assets. We have mountains, we have a lake, we have a river. You can go to any other place, and no other place in the world that I know of has those combinations. And then we have our assets like the golf course, the rec center. I used to live across the street from the rec center on First East, and I'd walk over there and it'd be so crowded and people having so much fun there and the laughter. It was just a great place to just sit and watch people. I thoroughly enjoy that. And we have the open areas with the parks. I personally like to go up and walk through the path through Art Dyke, and I've gone up the mouth of the canyon back. I do it all the time from where I live now. We have a wonderful place that we should cherish, and we need to protect and use those facilities. It's a wonderful place that we live in. And also, I said, the people here. Where I've lived in other places, you don't get to know your neighbors. Here, I know my neighbors. They come over, they talk to me. I go over there, I help them. They're always helping me. My neighbor, Mr. Merrill, takes my garbage can out and brings it back in for me. Every garbage can out. What a wonderful man. What a wonderful place we have here. And I truly appreciate it. This is my hometown.
Okay, Jeff, we're going to start with you. Jeff, Ernie, Barbara, and Stacy. Question 6. What has the current council done especially well, and where do you see the greatest need for improvement?
I think we've done a lot of things well. We need to do a little better in our personnel. I know we've worked really hard to try and have a standard set for our employees and to keep to that. So that's probably been our biggest challenge, I think. But otherwise, we've done well. We've listened to our boards. We've followed their advice. Sometimes we've disagreed with them, but I think overall we've done great. I think the council, the way it's constituted now, has done a marvelous job for the city. We're keeping taxes down. We're trying to get things done that need to be done for the city. And I think we'll continue to do that. And I'm not concerned about any of these fine women and men. I think that anyone will do great. We go to our meetings, we're where we're supposed to be, we do the things we're supposed to be doing, and I think we've done a great job. I don't really see a lot of room for improvement, other than just maybe getting out and getting to know more of the citizens.
I think this current city council's done a really good job. They have had some challenges that they've had to overcome. They've had some personnel challenges, as Jeff mentioned. They've done a really good job of balancing the difference between level of services and taxation rates. That's a hard one, because you've got a certain amount of people who want more and a certain amount of people who want less. And I think the way to do that, and they've done a really good job, is listen. And they've listened to their citizens and listened to the constituents, and then they went and made the best decisions they could with the information they had. And I think they've done a really good job. What do I think they could do better? Get along a little better, maybe. I've seen a little bit of acrimony. I've attended not just the city council meetings, but the work meetings. And sometimes they get a little bit heated. I can disagree, and I think we've all, when it came to sign what was the ethics paper that we signed, that we got an opportunity to sign candidates' ethics paper that said we wouldn't be personal. We wouldn't bring other candidates' families into it. We would act uprightly and honestly. And to me, it was an easy one. I just signed it. I know that some candidates in this community did not sign that. And to me, it was a no-brainer, because that's the way we should work, is be civilized and treat each other the way we want to be treated.
I agree that the current council has done an excellent job. They've done some things that you don't necessarily see. Everybody's talking about roads, and it's a great thing, it's a wonderful goal, but it would be really dumb to put new roads in without taking care of the pipes and things that are underneath it. So they're doing those, they have done those things that aren't necessarily visible. So that's good. You get a good foundation and a base behind things. There has been a lot of work toward debt reduction, refinancing of bonds and things like that, and I definitely agree that that's where we should be going. What we should be doing in addition, I agree about getting along, maybe spending a little more time in conversations in town hall meetings, working with the residents. A lot of times, yeah, okay, here we go. Work with the residents. Work with the residents. Talk to people. Get to know them and communicate. That's one of my biggest things. I like to communicate with people and to understand, and I think that with information and the understanding, that clock's not working.
I've given you a few seconds.
Okay, with the understanding, then people can make the best decisions, both the residents and the council members. I hope it makes sense.
You're next.
Okay, I'll just speak without a mic.
We have no mic. They both
Okay,
died on us.
I will talk as loud as, well, not as loud as I can. You don't want to hear that.
Yeah, would you hold the timer?
Have I started? Oh,
Oh, we're resetting.
okay, great.
Ready, set.
There's the mic.
Okay, so
There's the mic.
one thing that I have that I think has been done especially well is also kind of something that hasn't been done well, and I don't know whether you can categorize as each. But we've had some personnel problems. And the good thing that's been done is that we've made the changes that need to be made and continue to look at personnel problems to make changes that need to be made. And that is vitally important in order to have the best people in order to do the best job. But at the same time, we've had to spend a lot of money to get those personnel changes made. So that's unfortunate and it costs the city a lot of money. I think another thing they've done especially well is to make efforts towards community outreach. I don't know if many of you are on Facebook, but we have councilmen that, I almost said congressmen, councilmen that will communicate with the public on Facebook, and that is incredibly helpful for a lot of people. In addition to that, the YouTube station, I don't know if many of you are aware of this, but you can watch city council meetings on the YouTube station. And I do that quite a bit. And I'll tell you why. Because I can fast forward people. And that's fantastic. So you should try that too. But I do think it's an incredible tool to be able to bring it right in your home, and I can watch it whenever I need to. And there's some other things, but I'm out of time, so.
Okay, question 7, we're going to start with Kyle, then Doug, then Jeff, then Ernie. Are there specific programs or budget line items you'd like to cut or eliminate to pay for roads?
Good question. Doesn't seem like it's working as well. Anyways, when it comes to line items or issues I'd like to maybe look at or consider, it's really overall, I'd like to look at the budget overall to see where we can become more efficient. I think that overall the council has done a really good job. I do think we need to be a little bit more aggressive or assertive when it comes to employee personnel issues. I was alarmed and concerned a great deal when I found out during a city council meeting that the city has spent between $400,000 and $600,000 trying to get rid of employees over the last several years. Maybe the word isn't getting rid of, maybe parting ways with employees over the last 18 months or so. It was very discouraging to hear. $600,000 has been spent on that. So I'd like to see more efficiency and more effectiveness in government overall. I love the library, I love the rec center, I love the golf course. All three of those are not revenue sources in American Fork City. But just because they're not revenue sources doesn't mean that they couldn't be a little bit more efficient and effective. And so those are some of the areas that I would probably look at first. I'm not for getting rid of the library or the rec center or the golf course at this point, but I do want to go through those with a fine-tooth comb to determine where we can maybe become more efficient with those, effective in those. So those were probably the three that jump out to me as the personnel issue, and then those other areas, the golf course, the library, and the rec center.
I have to apologize where I have not been entrenched in what's gone on in the city. I've been in industry. I just retired last September from a corporation in Vegas and moved back. I'm learning what has gone on in the city, and I'm willing and wanting to learn more. But where we come out of industry, there's always on a path of continuous improvement, where the goal is to improve services, improve quality, and reduce cost. And I look at the city as a service industry, a well-diversified service industry, or company, I should say, in cemetery business, road business, sewer business, water business, road business, and that I'm sure there are areas where we can improve. And we have to depend on our employees, on the citizens, and have incentives for the employees to participate in how they can reduce their costs. And I'm very confident we can reduce costs and put that money towards other items such as the road. The road is something that needs to be done. I used to have a friend that would come into town, and for some reason we'd go up First West, and there'd be a comment on that first block off Main Street going First West. How terrible this looks. You live in this town, but then you get past it and it gets better and better and better. And we have other places in the city, not just First West. But anyway, I look at where we can reduce costs.
I've looked at the budget, and there's not a lot of room to cut costs. The city of American Fork has done a great job in trying to make sure that we don't waste the citizens' funds, because we understand they're your tax money, it's your money. It's not ours just to whim away at any time. So I don't see a lot of room to cut any programs at all. I wouldn't cut any right now. We're always trying to be more efficient. The city's tries to be efficient. We keep equipment as long as we can possibly keep it before we surplus it out. The city's very conservative that way. I would want to donate money to roads when we have extra money, but I want to pay as we go. I do not want any more bonds or taxes. We need to pay as we go always and not indent our city. It's great now, we're having a great economy, but it's not always great. And I don't want to have the city having a lot of IOUs that they can't pay if the economy turns down.
Wow, I can't say anything, but I agree. I don't know if any of you know that the city's budget is online. So there's two ways you can download. You can download an 8-page citizen budget that's really broad and it tells you where $65 million is spent. But then you can download the PDF of the great big fat budget and go over line item by line item. And I've done that. And I'll be honest, I can't find any line item that needs cut. I agree that we can be more efficient, and I think that we need to look at our priorities, and one of our priorities is definitely roads. And any time that we can save any money and put it towards the roads, I think that's a good option.
We'll try this one. Okay, Barbara, we're going to start with you on this one. Barbara, Stacy, Kyle, then Doug. The question is, how do you plan to communicate with the citizens of American Fork?
Sounds like my kind of question here. I've been communicating with the citizens of American Fork for a long time. We have listened, we have spoken. I have tried to take the things that I have seen that are the issues in the community and condense those so that they're understandable to the residents. They don't have time. Most people don't have time to go through these big budget things, these big policy things. They want, like the Reader's Digest version, which isn't always sufficient, but it's good. I would like to use Facebook, different types of social media. I would put things on the city website. I would increase the information that's there, but I really want to have places for the residents to make their concerns known. There have been some places that have been doing that. Report a concern on the city website. That doesn't always work. You don't always get an answer, and I think that that's a very important thing to do. Communication goes both ways. It's not communication if it just goes out or if it just comes in, but it has to go both ways for it to be effective communication.
Okay, so I did talk about a little bit about community outreach with the current council. I think I would continue in the Facebook mode. That's an easy one for me to get in touch with a lot of people. But another thing I would do is probably have an email database with people that are interested in hearing what I have to say and put out occasional emails and that could give them an update on things that are happening in the city. One thing I noticed that I was at my parents' house in Orem the other day and they had a graphical display of things that the city has done, and there was a little icon and some words about different things. I would call them successes that the city has had. And I found that to be really helpful and informative, and it had a lot of different items on it. And the biggest thing I would have to say, and as far as communicating with people, is the ability to be available to their concerns. Because at some point, you have to rely on the citizen to come to you. There's no way that a city councilman could go to every citizen and ask them what their concerns are. You have to be able to be available via phone calls, emails, whatever. Not that I would say I can dedicate every moment of my life to that, but that is a factor.
When addressing cities' concerns or communication issues that they have with the city, hypothetically, I would say, is this loud enough, by the way?
Yeah.
Well, some people it's not loud, other people I'm super loud. But, so I would say that the slogan of seek first to understand before being understood is the most important thing, I think, in any type of communication environment. I think so many times miscommunications is put out there because people don't truly understand what people's questions, concerns are. So I would say that seek first to understand before being understood. I think that's an important characteristic that I want to become better at. But when it comes to the type of method, I got to say that American Fork City over the last probably 6 to 8 years has done a remarkable job with the city website. Nothing against the previous administration, including some family members, but the city website was poor. Yeah, it's my fault. The city website is marvelous now compared to what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think we're doing fabulous when it comes to that. But as far as Facebook, I think that's a great way. I've got my phone number on there. I'm more than willing to answer any people's questions, concerns. But when it comes to that, I just think it's being open and listening. Regardless if you disagree, I think that's how we become better as people and as citizens of American Fork, is listening to opposite views, to consider what they have to say, because we definitely don't have all the answers.
Those who know me know that I am anything but bashful and shy, and more than willing to go meet with people and talk to them. I love meeting people and talking to them. As far as time available, I am retired, although I am a full-time farmer. I have a farm in Highland and run cows up Spanish Fork Canyon. I have a very flexible schedule, and I'm more than willing and have the time and the desire to go out and meet face to face. I think that's where you get true communication, much better than email or Facebook, whatever. Although I would set up, I think, I thought about this, I would set up a dedicated email. I would list my home phone number, my cell phone, and let people call me if they have a problem. But I think the important thing for a councilman is to have the time, the desire, and the effort to go meet with the constituents, to go meet with the people. And it's a learning process. See firsthand where the problems are, and then work with the other councilman or whoever it is to resolve those problems and those concerns.
Question number 9, we're going to start with Jeff, then Ernie, then Barbara, then Stacy. My neighbor, who has owned several water shares, now waters her backyard, about a quarter acre, constantly from when the water is turned on in the spring until it's turned on in October. It waters weeds, and it's such a waste. What can the council, the police, inspectors, others do about this?
The only thing we can really do is we'd have to monitor that. And we've talked about that as a city council. We talked about putting meters on the irrigation water. It's a difficult thing because of the cost involved. And I think the main thing is if you see a problem, just let us know. We'll try to talk to people at first and have them just not water unnecessarily. And water is a strange thing, because if you don't use it, the state takes it from you. If you do use it too much, you get fined. So there's kind of a balance there. I always thought that water, you just use it and to have a great time. But again, if you don't use your water rights that you have, the state will take them away. Another problem we have that's significant is there's weighted as actually that we have available. And so I know they're trying to do things to, when people don't use their rights, to take them away and try to get to the point where we have the water being used equal to the water that we actually have. We need to be careful with water. There's ways to water, and I think that education is the best way. Enforcement's always the worst thing to do. They're our neighbors, so if we can convince them and talk to them, I think that's the best way. But if you see a significant problem, let us know, and then we'll try through education to help people understand when they need to water and when they don't need to water. A great thing that I learned from Mayor Hatfield, and I love this, he scopes all of the sewer pipes every year. And we have avoided so many problems because we're doing some preventative work, and I love that about him. And we need to, like I said with water, I made a comment the other day that I thought rain was free from God, but I found that the state of Utah controls rainwater as well. So,
Jeff made a comment to me that you're sitting up here and you don't get the questions you want because you go, oh, I could have really answered that question great. I think we all feel that way. I like this one. Water's an easy one for me. Last year, we were the 8th driest year based on flows in American Fork Canyon. We had water restrictions in the city of American Fork, and we had enforcement, and people reported it, and when it was reported, it was enforced, okay? I agree with Jeff, that should be the last thing. 2 years ago, the city of American Fork, by law, the state said you have to have a water management and conservation committee. I sit on that committee along with Councilman Frost and several city members and some other community members. And we were asked to sit on that. The city members were, our employees were appointed by the mayor and the city council, and the rest of us then were put forward and appointed. And that committee has made recommendations to city council, and the city council has been very good in implementing them. Last year, we made the recommendation that the restrictions go into place, and they did, and they were effective. And we used a lot less water last year than we did this year. This year, we're probably gonna be like the 40th since 1928. We got a lot of water this year. But that said, our system, if we use it, we'll break it. It's not designed to water 24 hours a day. Education is a big deal, and I think that's the direction we need to go. And that board that I sit on, that management committee, is working on education.
It's nice when they pass the microphone down, it gives me an extra second or two to think. Actually, I couldn't agree more about education. What 99% of the people or more out there, if they understand, if they are educated, if they realize the importance of the things that they're asked to do, will do them voluntarily, if they understand. And I would recommend not so much going out and enforcing, but educating for sure. I would recommend bringing back the group, the Neighbors in Action Council, having people in different neighborhoods working with their friends and neighbors in a cooperative effort to educate, to listen again, communicate, so that everybody understands their viewpoints and they feel like they're being listened to. They say, oh, I didn't know this, what can I do to help? Or they realize, I have been doing something wrong, I didn't realize that. Or on the other hand, they say, there is a good reason. A lot of people don't understand why the city businesses and the parks water during the day. There is a good reason behind that. If the water isn't used during the day, it flows out and nobody can use it. So that's the plan. So communication and education are the keys to working well.
Okay, I would say that I think Ernie has a little bit of an advantage answering this question, which is good. But water is one of the most precious resources we have here and where we live. It limits our growth. It makes it so that we have the ability to live here in a place where we don't get continual rainwater. So it needs to be kept in consideration that people are using the water as if we don't live under that restriction. I think if I were faced with this particular scenario, I would go, my inclination is to go and ask more questions. I would want to know more about the scenario to see what was exactly happening. If they were using their water shares, yeah, I would just want to know more information. And I would want to, if it was if you report it, typically they have to see it happening in order for it to be enforced. I think the best solution is to create some way to incentivize people to use less water. So I don't know the correct answer for doing that exactly, but it would need to shift towards a model that would naturally incentivize people to use the less water.
All right, if you'll pass the microphone down to Ernie. Our time is up, and so we're going to be going into closing statements. Before we do that, I'll just let you know statistics. We've had 9 questions, of which each candidate has had a chance to answer 6 of those. So we've tried to work hard to make sure we're balanced on everything. So Ernie, we're going to start with you, 1 minute each for closing comments. Start with Ernie and work your way down the table to Barbara.
Again, I just want to thank you for coming. If I'm elected, I plan to work closely with the other council members and the mayor to do the best job I can. I love this city. I believe that it's a great place to live, and that's why we're all here. And so my goal is to work with everybody and to keep that sense of community that we have. I don't know what else to say other than thank you for being here.
Sure, you took what I was going to say. Anyway, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I know it's out of your day. There's a lot of other fun things you could be doing right now. You supported me 4 years ago, and I'd love for your support for 4 more years. I don't know if I'd go beyond 8, because I really enjoyed the fact that we ought to have some term limits, especially in an area east of here, significant term limits. But I enjoy working with the citizens. I enjoy working with the city council and the mayor. I've had a great experience serving the citizens of American Fork. And again, I appreciate your support. You can't go wrong with anybody you choose. We've got great council people that will be running this year. So good luck to all of you.
I'd like to mention just a couple of things that I did fail to mention, that I have spent 10 years in the volunteer American Fork Fire Department, 2 terms on as a board of director on the American Fork Irrigation Company. I may have mentioned that I lived at the state training school. We had a house that was right next to the amphitheater. My daily commute to and from the bus stop was around the amphitheater. American Fork is my hometown. I know where the name American Fork came from. I know family traditions that have gone by the side I'd like to see come back. I love American Fork. I could live any place I want, but I choose to live in American Fork. And I've always come home to American Fork, wherever I've lived. I think I offer a diversified background to what the existing city council is, where we would complement each other and get a lot of good things done. I'd like to see American Fork go from good to great.
I'd like to thank the chamber for actually putting this on, wherever you're at, John. Oh, here. I was looking for Hunter. Thank you. Appreciate you guys doing this. And the American Fork Hospital for allowing us to use their building, and John for moderating this. And grateful for you for showing up here. You obviously don't have to be here, and you're here because you care enough about American Fork City and the future of it that you decided to be here on a Saturday morning, even though there wasn't pancakes here, which I was disappointed at. But I'm really running for the same reason these other people are running. I love American Fork City, born and raised here, as I mentioned to you. And I agree with what Richards has to say here. American Fork City is a great place to live, and I want to make it a better place to live, work, and play. And for that reason, vote Barrett, American Fork City Council.
All right, thank you also for being here. I think this is kind of an interesting forum because how many times do you go someplace on Saturday morning and say, hey, would you please judge me right now and see how I am? So please come and judge me. So I just wanted to say, wow, that's an interesting experience for me. I think if you noticed in my opening statements, I didn't talk about any issues, and I obviously have some important issues that I think are really important with the city and some things we can improve upon. But the reason that I didn't is because I actually think that style matters. I think, in fact, it can be one of the most important things that matter. How you solve problems matters. It affects your effectiveness. And I have what I call 3 C's to solving problems. I have citizen engagement, collaboration, and creative problem solving. And that's kind of how I view the ability to create change. And if you can't create change, then why are you there?
When I was a newspaper reporter, through the years I had numerous people say, why don't you run for city council? And I said, oh, I don't want to, because at least at the newspaper I get the last word, and I don't have to campaign. And here I am. I'm flexible. I guess that's it. I love American Fork. I've lived here for 40 years, not quite all my life, but quite a bit of it. And I love it. I love the community, the sense of community, the way that people get along. I have served on numerous boards and groups as volunteer groups to help the community, and I would like to continue. I'd like to take the knowledge that I have gained to be able to work with the traits that I have and be able to make our community better and on the way to great. Thank you.
So once again, like I said, it's difficult to run for office, so let's give another round of applause to our candidates. Also, let's give a round of applause to the chamber and the hospital. then I just want to point out, I appreciate there's lots of things you could do today. Thank you for being here, but look around. I know there's a lot more folks that live in American Fork than are here today. So you have a lot of work to help educate your friends and neighbors about what you learned today. Ballots should have been mailed out. You should have them. I see one that was right here. So help your friends and neighbors understand what you think is best for American Fork. So thank you for inviting me here today.
All right. We really appreciate John Diggle for coming out, being our moderator. Let's give him a round of applause. And again, thanks to our volunteers. Scott Walker and Ryan Hunter both serve on the board for the chamber, and they're in the background making things happen. So let's give them a round of applause. So just to leave you with a thought, if you look up the history of American Fork, it talks about the first settlers of American Fork. They were in scattered conditions along the American Fork River, and by the 1850s, tension between the settlers and Native Americans was increasing. So in 1853, Daniel Wells, the head of the Nauvoo Legion, instructed settlers to move into specific forts. And at a meeting on July 23, 1853, at the schoolhouse in American Fork, Lorenzo Snow and Parley P. Pratt convinced the settlers to follow Wells' directions and all moved together into a central fort. Now, obviously, it's not possible to have all the citizens move together physically anymore. However, I think it's poignant and important to remember that even though we all have differing opinions and we come from all walks of life, it is important that we come together as a community so that the community can become a better place to live. And these people that are running for office, and I'll point out Carlton and Brad as well, they basically have painted a bullseye on their back and said, all right, American Fork citizens, ready, aim, fire. I am willing to take all the bullets and all the darts that you can throw at me because I love my city so much that I'm willing to take any amount of grief and dissatisfaction that you can throw at me so that we can continue to grow and become a better city. And trust me, the people that have been serving know that happens. And so as we go through and we fill out our ballots, just keep in mind that every single person that has put their name out on that ballot has made that commitment to make this a better place for you, the residents of American Fork. There's no agenda out there saying this is why I'm running because this has to stop. No, it's because they all want to make American Fork a better place to live. And I encourage you to keep that in your minds as you vote. And I thank you for coming.